Hi, everybody. I'm Kraig Kann. Right now, on this edition of Tracks to Success, meet a man who's arrived at the top of the shoe and apparel industry. In his role as president at Johnston Murphy, he's elevating the brand to new levels of success. And it's fair to say that when it comes to trends, he prides himself on being fashionably early. His name is Danny Ewoldsen. His inspiring story of success starts now.
Welcome to Tracks to Success. This is the podcast that brings you inspiring people and their inspiring stories, how they found their way to the top, and how their path can help you do the same. Here's your host, network broadcaster, C-suite executive, best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur, Kraig Kann.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a special hello to my guest. Danny Ewoldsen joins Johnston Murphy. I absolutely love the company. I think you know that, Danny. It's great to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Looking forward to a great conversation and appreciate the kind words about J&M already.
Well, I got to start with my mail, okay?
Yeah,
I mean, this just came in the mail.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only one that gets something like this. How is the business doing today, and why are these things so darn important?
Yeah, the business is good. It's been good. We've had a lot of fun working on this brand for 20 years for me now. You asked specifically about mailer and direct mail, which seems a little bit like a dinosaur of an idea. But for us, it's a really good way to stay in front of our customer. Our customer is guys like you who is not hanging out at the mall all day. You got other things to do. You're not wake up in the morning and go, and I wonder what's going on at J&M. And so it's kind of our job to get in front of our guy. And he'll get that mailer, he'll throw it in his briefcase or his backpack and drag it along with him. And then when he has a second to look, he'll reach out or he'll come see us in the store.
Well, you're in charge of a lot of things, okay? Performance of the company is obviously the big thing, but you're overseeing brand strategy as well. And I'm guessing that many of our listeners might not truly understand what goes into brand strategy. That mailer is one part of it, but can you explain overall the philosophy of something like that?
Yeah, wow. It's a huge question. I think when you talk about a brand like J&M, we're about to have our 175th birthday next year. So a heritage brand is a different animal altogether. There's a part of it, this brand stewardship to start with, right? We want to hand this brand over to the next generation in better shape than we got it. And so for sure, you look backwards to some degree to say, what is your purpose? What is the reason that you exist? Why have you been successful for so long? But then you really got to look at where the market is going and most importantly, where your consumer is going. And I think any good brand strategy really starts with a really crazy focus on the consumer.
So what would you say is more important then, being fresh and new, or, pardon the rhyme, tried and true, something that's trusted, that everybody knows about? What's most important?
Yeah, well, I think you got to understand what it is that a consumer loves about you. And so for a brand like J&M, it's a really kind of old school idea, but the idea of phenomenal world-class quality and world-class service, those old tenets of retail, still really come into play. And so we have to stay true to that no matter what we do. But if you don't continue to evolve and pivot your business and stay fresh and continue to innovate, you will quickly die. And so it's a combination of both for sure. I think understanding, again, the purpose of your brand and what you need to stay close to and stay true to is important, so you don't go outside the lines. And you don't chase revenue to the point where it can damage the brand. But outside of that, if you're not staying fresh, look out, because it's a really competitive market.
So we're going to get into leadership and all that goes with running a business a little bit more. This podcast is called Tracks to Success. So I want to go backwards a little bit and kind of take us through your journey, if you will, back in time. Let's go back to childhood. What kind of a kid were you? Were you always the one who thought about being the business guy? Did you have the lemonade stand on the side of the street, or what kind of a kid were you?
No, I didn't. I did have a paper route, and I grew up in the Midwest and born in Minnesota and grew up mostly in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And so I detasseled corn. I did all those things you could do, even though we lived in the city, right? In the big city of Cedar Rapids. But we didn't have much money. And so for me, it was more practical. Like I wanted to have money so I could buy things and my own clothes, later in life, buy guitars, buy sports gear, whatever the thing I was into at the time. But I wouldn't say that I was initially drawn to business specifically. Like any kid, I was just trying to figure things out and play a bunch of sports and then play music and do all those things. And then some things happened in my life later that got me really more focused on career, I think.
Okay, you brought it up, so let's go there. Sports. What's your favorite? What were you good at?
Yeah, well, what was I good at? Today, I'm an avid golfer, and I've talked a little bit about this in the past. I absolutely love the game. I didn't pick it up until my late 20s, but I'm addicted. I don't get to play as much as I would like, but I love it. And I'm a decent player, right? I've been a single-digit handicap for a long time, but the guys I play with just beat the hell out of me every weekend. I play with a lot of good players.
Were you a player as a kid? Did you play as a kid?
No.
But what did you play as a kid?
No, I played, believe it or not, I played football and basketball, baseball, wrestling, all those things. But I am 5'7", 150 pounds, and at some point, all the sports sort of outgrew me. And that's when I kind of shifted over to music and started playing guitar and doing that whole thing.
Okay. You sent me, which is fair game, by the way.
It is.
A few pictures of you back in the music days. And that's a very different look for Danny at that time.
Yeah. I think an important part of being a decent leader is knowing how to laugh at yourself. And I bring those pictures up, and I like to share that part of my life. It makes for good stories, and honestly takes down some barriers. People tend to relax when they see that, you had a whole different life a long time ago. So yeah, my days of playing guitar were a lot of fun, and I used up all my hair early.
Okay, so we could say follically challenged now,
and
I can relate. We can all relate to that stuff. But like, what got you into music? Were you playing that in high school and college, playing gigs? What was that all about?
Yeah, honestly, my parents went through an odd divorce. And give you some background on that. My father was a minister of a big church in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and came out of the closet in 1980. And I went to live with my father. My brother, my sister lived with my mom, and it was an odd thing to go through, especially for like a 12-year-old jock, and 1980 was a different time. And I learned so much through that whole process, but I also wandered a little bit after that, got in a little bit of trouble, and wasn't the best kid, and trying to find something to get focused on. And I got a guitar when I was 13 years old and just was enamored with the thing. There's always music in my family. Everybody in my family are musicians, so started playing professionally when I was 14 or 15. And in high school, I didn't usually go to school on Fridays. We would do Thursday, Friday, Saturday night gigs and tour all over the Midwest, and it was great. I loved every bit of it.
So, okay, if you had your way, would you be playing guitar professionally now and doing all the music, or do you like what you're doing? I mean, it's not a loaded question.
No,
you're not getting fired. You run the company, okay?
Right. It's a great question. I still will have dreams where I am playing the show, right? And I'll wake up the next day and think about how great that was. And I did get the opportunity to do it professionally as an adult. So I didn't go to college. I went straight to LA out of high school and took a shot at all that. And it was really, really an awesome thing to do when you're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. After that, it gets problematic. I will say the thing that really drove me nuts about it, as much as I loved it, first of all, limited talent, right? I remember going to see Stevie Ray Vaughan. Somebody took me to go see him. I had no idea who he was. And I remember after watching that, going home and apologizing to all my guitarists for ever touching them, right? There are people that have a different gear, and anybody who is best in the world at what they do is just so much better than the rest of us. And so what I realized, though, was that when I was touring, there would be times when we would be warming up for a national act, and we would be a better, tighter, technically stronger band than them, while they're selling 1 million records and selling out stadiums. Other times, we would be a headliner and have band warm up for us, and I'd be listening to them going, these guys are kicking our ass. They're so much better. It's completely subjective, right? So you could just kill yourself. You could work hard to market. You could be smart professionally, the way you run the brand, the band, the way you operate things. But it's still subjective in the end, which is why I ended up loving golf and why I love business, because both of those things they're meritocracies. The numbers are what the numbers are. You shot what you shot when you go play golf.
Yeah.
There's no subjectivity to it. And so I think it was my experience in music that kind of got me excited about business, because I knew if I put the effort in, I could show the results.
Okay. I, for my company, run leadership communication workshops for executives, helping them own the room, talking about the value of communication and how we present the best of ourselves to present the best of our company. So now we're going to have a little dialogue here. You run a business. I want to talk about leadership and communication as you see it. All right. As I understand it now, you have some executive education experience, right? Harvard Business School. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to put it into play right now. What would you say is the most important tie-in of communication as it relates to leadership?
Yeah, I would honestly say transparency. I mean, I just think trust is everything, right? And as a leader, if your people don't believe that you care about their well-being, and if they don't believe that your job is to make them successful, then you're never going to have the trust, and you're never going to move them. My whole leadership perspective is really based on a simple idea that I learned when I was playing guitar for a living. By the way, I'll come back to that. But it's that you can't make anybody do anything. You can only make them want to do it, right? And so it really is about being influential, not manipulative, but influential. In my day, just to follow up on the, so I was on the road. You got 5 guys in a band. You got 5 guys in a road crew. You're living in tour buses. You're 100% reliant on each other, right? So if your sound man isn't on his game, your light man is not his game, the gig doesn't come off. You don't perform well. And there are no rules in a rock and roll band on the road. If somebody screws up, you don't call HR and say, hey, take care of this, right? You got to sit down with somebody and try to find a way to pull it together. And so I just learned that by getting them bought in, by making them feel like they're a part of something bigger and being honest about everything, the whole machine works better.
Would you say you're a leader who enjoys looking at numbers and spreadsheets and bottom line stuff more, or a leader who really values the people around you, seeing them climb the ladder, if you will, of success, building their brand?
Yeah, for sure. It's the latter. I mean, we're never going to sit on our rocking porch in retirement and think about our biggest bonus year or the year that, we grew the top line the most. We should be proud of those accomplishments without question. It's really, really hard to be successful in business. But what you will think about is the relationships you have with people and watching other people grow and being so appreciative of the people that helped you do all of that. So I'm obligated to look at spreadsheets. I do need to know the numbers, but that's not gratifying. That's the report card of all the work you do through the people that you work with every day. And I just believe this. I believe that it's not, happiness is not about what you do. It's about who you do it with. And the very, very best part of being in charge, if you will, is you get to decide who you spend your time with. If you're not having a good time at work, it's your own fault because you didn't build a team that you want to be around.
A quick minute to welcome a partner to the podcast and tell you about a great deal just for you. Here's a question. Do you wear hats? Of course you do. Then you need to know about Ahead. Ahead doesn't follow the trends. They set them, providing the best in headwear, styles, fabrications, and ornamentations for 25 years. And by listening to this podcast, you get a chance to save big. Visit aheadusashop.com and use the code TTS, that's Tracks to Success, to receive 20% off your order. That's aheadusashop.com and use the exclusive code TTS, 20% off just for listening. We're back with Danny Ewoldsen, the president of Johnston Murphy. Let's get back to the topic of leadership. And what would you say the biggest thing people learn from you as a leader?
Oh, boy. So I have a lot of functional areas that report into me. And of all my direct reports, I don't know that I can do any of their jobs. I'm not skilled in one particular sort of functional area. And so I really think my job is to enable or empower the people that I work with and facilitate and try to, give them the tools they need or the right introduction so they can be successful. So what they would learn from me, I hope, would be the importance of communication and to care about the people you work with and to be appreciative and sort of the soft things. in terms of the technical stuff and the way that you mentor people, it really depends on what that person needs. And sometimes you can help them with their specific needs. And sometimes you got to put them in front of somebody else that can help them with their needs.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's talk about your own path to success and maybe what you've learned about you along the way. You start at Johnston and Murphy as VP of Store Operations 2003, right?
Right.
Okay. Promoted to VP of Store and Consumer Sales in 2006. Named Executive VP for Retail and E-commerce, big deal, e-commerce, back in 2013. And then president of the company in 2019. Those are some pretty lofty steps. What have you learned about yourself in that journey?
I think the thing that I'm still trying to learn all the time is that you don't have to have all the answers. You're never going to be the expert on everything. And that, no one is really smart enough to be an effective dictator. So again, you continue to learn that if you want to scale, you have to give people the freedom to do their jobs and understand that they're going to know more about that thing than you do. I think probably if you think about all those steps you take in your career, probably the one that challenges people the most, and it happens for different people in different stages, is when you start supervising people whose job you can't or have never done. Right. And when you start doing that, there again is a level of trust. Now you can drive that person nuts by trying to be an expert in what they do and ask them 8 billion questions and get in the weeds with them. I wouldn't recommend that. I think you got to let them go. If you don't have the right person, change the person, but you have to trust them to be the expert at what they do. I had a boss I worked with early on when I first got promoted into a VP role at a company before Johnston Murphy. And I remember with good intentions coming into the corporate office and wanting to get involved at everything at a granular level. And he just pulled me aside one day and said, let the experts do their jobs. Like, stop it. They know more about this than you do. So forget about the reporting structure, forget about what your title is, forget about all that. Let the experts do their jobs.
Interesting stuff. I read something the other day, Danny, that, and obviously it's on Twitter. So, everything is true. That we see on Twitter and X. But it was really from an expert who was talking about financial success and said that if you really want to climb the ladder, if you want to put more money in your pocket and retire early, then change jobs every 4 years, leave your company every 5 years and move on and let people recruit you, et cetera. That's not your path. You've stayed at the same place for a long time. You love the company that much, or it just fits you? What?
Yeah, all the above. First of all, I disagree with that premise entirely. Like the idea that can any of us change jobs for a financial gain if that's your one goal? Of course you can. But so take a guy like me who has no college education, right? I mean, I went straight into the business world from playing guitar and had to work my way up. And so for me, I was willing to go wherever the job was within the company I was working at. So I grew up in the field, right? So if I was being promoted from, as I went from Dallas to Atlanta to LA to Chicago, all the places, I was happy to take those opportunities, but I wasn't leaving the company because I was building something and getting an education. And that was allowing me then to grow my career. And so the idea of grow where you're planted is a really, really good idea. Now, if you really just jump in and make some money and that's your only goal, there'll be a ceiling to that as well, because you'll be found out eventually, right? It's easy to walk in and sort of fix what was ever broken behind you, but to build something sustainable is a different skill set. And you're not going to know if you have the ability to do that unless you stay put for a while.
In addition to hosting this podcast, Kraig leads the Kann Advisory Group, focused on elevating communication for companies and individuals. Company consulting, team and individual workshops, mind-altering virtual programs. To learn more and to find out why the Elevate workshop has been labeled the most powerful experience in leadership communication, visit cannadvisory.com. And when you do connect, mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive your special discount. Now, back to the interview.
Okay, so having heard all that, clearly something stands out there. I was going to ask you about the art of the sell, you know, and we're all salespeople. Doesn't matter what we do.
Sure.
We got to sell ourselves. You just said you didn't have a college education.
Right.
And lo and behold, look at you. You're president of a company. Now,
Right.
there are people that are listening and they're saying, great, I can do that too. Value of a college education maybe isn't what it once was. I can still find my way to success. Okay, that's fine. But the art of the sell, we're not talking about selling shoes and apparel and all the great things that Johnston and Murphy does. I want to hear about you selling you if you didn't have that piece of paper and that degree, and you're a guy who strums a guitar and obviously pretty darn good at it. And then you say, okay, I'm ditching this and I'm going to do that. Like, how'd you sell yourself?
Yeah. The whole thing's pretty fluky, honestly. Again, I'm going to say that when I got into retail, remember, I started working in retail stores. I was the sales guy that you walked in and talked to, and I'd put clothes on your back and try to be charming and hope that you would come back and see me again. And I was good at that. That came naturally. Now, I also just got off the road playing guitar. I was in front of the public every single night. I spent a lot of time networking in that business. And so I was comfortable talking to people. And by the way, also passionate about it. I love people. And so, and I think people sense that. So that part was easy. Getting promoted for literally being good at sales, that part was easy. Then you get into management and you start to understand, am I scalable here and how do I sell myself from that perspective? And I sort of did that by accident as well, because, I became a district manager, right? So I was responsible for a group of stores across the Midwest. And very selfishly, when I looked at my calendar, I'd be like, okay, well, today I have to go to this city and see that team. Well, I don't like that team, and I'm not looking forward to this day. So I'm going to change that team so the next time I go, I have a better time. Well, it turned out that the people I like to hang out with are the same people that the public likes to hang out with. I would build teams full of likable people, like a really simple idea. And it turned out that was good for business. And then I figured I could replicate it at a broader level and more volume and more stores. And then over time, you start to pick up some business acumen just by being curious, asking a lot of questions. And so I think my curiosity got me a long way as well. I asked a lot of questions, and I think leaders enjoy people that ask good questions because they like to coach.
Yep. Curiosity, big word. You hear that a lot from leaders.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious. I wrote a book called Can You Get Our Attention? Which in today's world, there's a lot of competition. Doesn't matter what we do. We got to find a way to stand out and separate ourselves. So how do you get people to follow? Now, Johnston and Murphy's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get people to follow, and I want to ask you about how you do that. It's another thing to get people to continue to stay loyal, right? Getting there's one thing, remaining relevant is another. How do you do it?
Yeah. Through the lens of consumers or employees or both?
Yep.
Yeah. I think in terms of consumers, this is just an amazing brand. And I'm so honored to be a part of it and to work with the colleagues that we have here. It's just an awesome team. And, when I started 20 years ago here, the thing that really excited me about the opportunity was the brand had gotten a little tired. It needed to be freshened up. It needed to be modernized. And that's something you always work on. But the brand had never, ever put poor product into the marketplace. They'd never skimped on quality. They'd never skimped on service. So there was no integrity issue. There was no trust issue with the consumer. It was just a matter of trying to make the brand a little sexier, for lack of a better word. That's super fun work, right? Trying to repair trust or integrity, that's really hard work, right? That wasn't the challenge here. And so for me, and our team here, what we really focus on is continuing to deliver on those ideas. Like what our consumer needs from us is great quality product that make them feel confident, right? And remove a variable in their lives. When I put on J&M, I'm going to look great. I'm going to feel great. I don't have to worry about it, right? I'm a busy professional. And as long as we do that, and that from both a service perspective and a product perspective, we'll continue to get consumers to follow us because we're making good on our promise, right? And if anything ever goes wrong, I mean, anything goes wrong with something that we did with a consumer, everybody in our company, every individual in every store, everybody in our office is empowered to help the customer. I like to say you will never get in trouble for helping a customer. So if you're on the fence, just take care of them. Just do it, right? The relationship is too important to break up over some silly thing. So that's kind of the consumer mindset. On the employee side, I think it's really important that you create opportunities for your teams. If you want people to stay on board and be with you for a long time, you really got to pay attention to making sure that they have an opportunity to grow and get exposure to the things that they want to do. I wish we could do it even more. This is why growth is so important. You have to be growing the business if you want to hang on to a great team, because that's the only way you can create opportunity for people is through growth.
Okay. As you know, because I've talked to you about this, and full transparency, folks, the store in the airport in Charlotte, the Johnston Murphy store, has a lot of my money, as do a few of the other ones.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to wear it. I say I probably got 12 pairs of your shoes and probably 6 or 7 or 8 jackets. I'm all good with that. My question is, does the store employee in Charlotte that I buy from know your vision? And how important is that as a leader?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think, there's a broad vision to say, what is it we stand for and what are we trying to do collectively? And most important, what is your role in making that happen? That's the key of any vision, is the individual understands how they participate, right? If there's a vision out there and it feels disconnected from anybody, I don't care if they work in your distribution center or any part of your organization, if they don't know their part in that vision, then the whole thing's sort of broken. And we're not perfect, and no company is. I don't know the perfect balance of communication. No one will ever figure that out. In terms of the field organization, where you're meeting the people in our stores are really the face of our brand, right? When you go into that store in Charlotte, if somebody walks up with a big smile and takes care of you, you're going to like our brand, and that's our brand's personality, period. I mean, and I know that because I grew up working in the field. And so, we bring them together every year in Nashville, bring the whole team in and have a big party and take them downtown. And we try to teach them a lot while they're here. But that's not the goal of the conference. The goal is to send them home in love with the company, in love with their jobs, and feeling appreciated. That's the most important thing we can do. And so, the vision matters a ton. They need to understand what it is we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. But they also need to feel appreciated. The happier your employees are, obviously, that translates to every single consumer interaction.
Well, I think they would also learn that if they stay their course, right, and love the company, they can sit in your seat, because that's kind of how you did it. And it doesn't matter where you start. It's what impact you make along the way. And I talk about that all the time in my workshops. So let's get selfish a little bit. Let's go back to a topic you love, golf. I first officially met you at the PGA show in Orlando,
right,
and wanted to come say hello, because obviously we both like golf. We have a history in golf. Now, the company used to be in golf a long time ago, and actually aligned itself with some pretty heavy hitters in the golf industry, at various levels. And then it went away,
right?
And now it's back. Is it back because of you? And why is golf so important to the brand?
Well, it's a great question. And by the way, I'm so thrilled you did stop in to introduce yourself and say hello. And we do have a lot in common. Just Johnston Murphy and golf is a great start. J&M got into golf in the 1920s, right? Very country club, very high-end premium. And in those days, it was, literally dress shoes with leather bottoms and spikes out of the bottom of them. And you're right, that business progressed and got really big for J&M. There were 8 major champions as J&M ambassadors in the 80s, including, you had Arnold Palmer as the biggest J&M ambassador, Greg Norman, Hale Irwin, all the rest of them. And it's funny, in those days, they did it for free shoes. Can you imagine that, Kraig? It's just so crazy how much times have changed, right? Because we're all spending a fortune to put shoes on PGA players today. So, I think it was a great business. As that business the products turned more athletic, and a lot of the construction went offshore and turned more into athletic designs versus sort of dress shoe with metal spikes in them. J&M decided to get out of it. That way predates me. But we decided to get back into it for one reason. It really had nothing to do with me. It was actually pitched by another part of our team. And that is the simple fact that all of our survey work told us that our consumer loves to play golf. Right. And we're just trying to offer our consumer what they need. We know how to make incredible shoes. We know our consumer likes to golf. Seems like a good fit. So that's what got us back to the business.
Looking for a guest speaker for your next event or annual conference? Kraig's message is inspiring and empowering. Visit kraigkannspeak.com to learn more about his topics and find out about his green shoe experience. It's a day your people will talk about long after he's gone. So visit kraigkannspeak.com and mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive your special discount. Now, back to the show.
This podcast is called Tracks to Success. It's about inspiring people and their inspiring stories. I've learned just in our short time together today, your journey was quite interesting, and it's not traditional. It's really unique. I think one of the things that I like to try to help people understand is that the tracks to success, if you will, are not a straight line. Rarely does that happen for people. In fact, I think it's important for them to see that the art of the pivot is quite important. Companies have to do it all the time. We don't usually always fly direct flights. We've got to connect. We might change majors. And so it's okay, but we have to be prepared for that pivot. So how would you describe the tracks to success, if you will, from your vantage point where you sit?
Yeah, well, the pivot thing is key, right? Nothing works in that linear fashion, as you said, and sometimes you got to take some steps backwards to go forwards, and all of that. I think aligning yourself with people that you want to be around is just a great foundational step as you're thinking about tracks to success. If you want opportunity, you got to be around people who can create opportunity for you or with you. And if you wake up one day and you don't feel aligned with an organization you're in or the work that you're doing, you're not passionate about it, your bucket's empty, all those things, then absolutely get the hell out of there. Go start over, go figure something else out. And that might mean taking a step backwards to figure out something else. But if you're working towards something that's going to satisfy you in the long term, and you're going to get yourself around people that you feel aligned with, you'll be so much better off for it.
Okay, last thing before I let you go. If you were in my team workshop, all right, we were co-conducting it, if you will, focused on building influence, focus on becoming a better presenter, focus on being a better storyteller and a better leader. And I asked you to talk about the importance today and the value of the personal brand, building a personal brand, professional brand that gets noticed. What would you say to that audience in front of us?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think it's different for different people, right? Some people are blessed with effervescent personality and can really light up a room. Other people cannot. And I think understanding, first of all, what is your personal style of communication that resonates with others is key. And where I see people screw up, particularly relative to presentation, is when they write this beautiful speech that is not in their native tongue. In other words, they try to be overly articulate and use different words and different phrases and the rest of it. The more you can be yourself, the more you can sound authentic, the better you're going to connect with people. If you're funny, be funny. If you're intense, be intense. Whatever that thing you bring to the table is what you need to lead with, but it ought to be your voice, and you got to talk about things that you're expert in.
The authentic voice. Write like you speak. Don't speak like it's written.
Right. That's right.
Pretty simple. Hey, this has been a blast. I value you as a guest, and I love what you've done for your company. As I think you like to say, and maybe you'll correct me if I don't get it exactly right, this isn't your dad's shoe company anymore. Is that fair?
Right. Unless your dad knows what's up. That's exactly right. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing in the campaign. Yeah, I mean, this brand has been a blast to work on, as I've said, and I love where we're taking it. It's a whole new generation to go after. And, for a company that's been around for 175 years, it can never be your dad's shoe company. You're always moving on to the next generation. Because if we acted our age, we'd be dead.
Well, I just learned what's up. I think our audience learned what's up. It's great to spend time with you. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
My pleasure, Kraig. Thanks to you.
Time now for our closing segment. We call it Getting Ahead. My thoughts on helping you find your track to success. And it's brought to you by Ahead. If you're looking for the best in headwear, Ahead has you covered. From a robust collegiate collection with more than 30 universities to choose from, to styles featuring golf legends Palmer, Nicklaus, and Sorenstam, to fits for all 6 teams in the new TGL Golf League, visit aheadusashop.com. That's aheadusashop.com and use code TTS at checkout. Receive 20% off your purchase. That's aheadusashop.com and code TTS for 20% off. Well, obviously, as you just heard, Danny is in the apparel business, specifically shoes. He's in the shoe business. And one of the big parts of the workshops and the keynotes that I actually put on for audiences is, believe it or not, a shoe, just like this. It's actually a green shoe. And I hand it out to somebody in the audience. Each time, one shoe, one person in the audience. So how do they get one? Well, it signifies that somebody has actually stood out, that they've grabbed people's attention, that they've made a difference that day, and they've delivered a message that people will pay attention to and carry forward, building some word of mouth marketing, right? They get people talking. Now, Danny and I just talked about staying fresh and being ahead in the fashion industry. Now, when it comes to success, my advice is this: we don't want to follow the curve, because that's what a lot of companies and a lot of people do. They do it the way that feels comfortable to them. We don't want to follow the curve. We want to set the curve. We want to be the person that actually does what others haven't done or perhaps aren't willing to do or even try. And that's how you get noticed, by actually taking something in front of you and giving back something that's better than people expected or different than what people expected in the first place. So what I like to tell people is, A, focus on being better than others who do what you do. That's important. But most important is focus on being different. In other words, having a green shoe quality, a standout, standalone quality. And if you're looking to get ahead and have that track to success, then you need to focus on finding a way to separate yourself from your competition. Great to have Danny on the program. Great to have you with us on Tracks to Success. I'm Kraig Kann. We'll catch you next time. Until then, let's stay connected.
Don't forget to subscribe to the show for more great interviews and Kraig's thoughts on reaching your highest personal and professional summit. Find it wherever you get your podcasts and on the Kraig Kann YouTube channel and kraigkannspeak.com.